thank you so much for chatting with me. And, I know that you had been a Galvanized member for a really long time, and I think it's great that you and I can actually have a conversation.
Yeah, as opposed to just the small talk drive-by you usually used to doing.
Yeah, so let's just dive into it. So
Let's do
you
it.
have a diverse background in both public and private sectors. Just to provide our listeners with some insight and background, could you walk us through the past 20 or so years and what they've looked like in your professional scene?
Just the past 20 years, yeah.
Just a small.
Yeah, so I graduated college right after September 11th, so I went in the military right after that. I became an intelligence officer in the Navy, lived overseas, did a number of deployments, and I ended up at a place called the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. It's called DevGru for short. The reason I bring that up, it was actually the most formative experience I had throughout the 6+ years I was in the military. It's a SEAL unit or SEAL team, the one that has been made famous for killing bin Laden and Captain Phillips and all that good stuff. So I did a number of deployments there to Iraq and Afghanistan, and I say that experience ruined me. When you're at what is arguably the highest performing team on the planet, it's really hard to go anywhere else after that. But I did. So I moved on to the Navy. From the Navy, went in the FBI, and I became an agent in the FBI for a little more than a year. And I realized that wasn't the place for me. It was a great organization. I got some great friends there, but a friend of mine described it as a 10-speed downshift going from DevGru to the FBI. So it was a difficult cultural adjustment to go from high operational tempo, working as a team all the time, to more methodical kind of plotting casework, working on your own. So I left the FBI, and then I went into entrepreneurship. So that was I was 30 years old at the time, so a little under a decade of public sector service at the time. Realized, hey, I didn't like the big bureaucracy of the Department of Justice and the FBI, so I want to go into somewhere small. So a friend at the time had started a business doing kind of like security consulting, and that's a lot of the world I'd come from. So I joined him and really learned how to kind of build a business from scratch. So I spent 6 years starting with 2 guys into a basement, working our way up to almost 100 people, raising a lot of money, building a board. And that was mostly selling into the government, but also some commercial work. But that was where I say I got my MBA on the job, was building a business and hiring and taking the skills that I'd learned in the military and applying them in the private sector, and running a successful business units. And then it was almost 4 years ago. A number of kind of inflection points were hitting. The business was looking like it was going to be merged, and I realized, hey, now's a good time to step away. My wife went to Arizona State, even though we met back east. We're like, hey, let's get out to Arizona. We always wanted to get out to Arizona. I've got family here. My mother's here, and the in-laws are here, and we have small children. So we made the leap and moved out here. And I navigated my way to Chassi.
Wow. I mean, that's such a journey, going from, the intense work that you were doing to a startup. And then, like you had mentioned, the shift of, starting with such an organized group, and then the cultural changes. So how did you find that working for the government prepared you, or how did that help you with technology management?
Well, working particularly at DevGru prepared me for a lot of stuff. It sort of cultivated my appreciation for performance, both certainly individually, but also collectively. And it also, that was what was basically known as part of the Joint Special Operations Command community, which is characterized by what you could describe as a relatively flatter organization, certainly compared to a lot of the hierarchy of the military, nodal authority, right? So you don't need to have 10 people approve something in order to go do your job. So that, although not a startup by any means, but that environment molded me and informed how I ended up building my first attempt in entrepreneurship and in the services business. That experience was incredibly formative, where it's like you find incredible people. I'll say one of the things I learned is the biggest difference between a group and a team is a team has purpose, alignment, and trust, and a group does not. Right. And so you find wonderful people, you cultivate a sense of purpose. As a leader, it's your responsibility to foster that alignment, create those sort of swim lanes, roles, responsibilities, going after that purpose. And then also arguably the most important thing a leader is going to do is build trust amongst the team through communication, collaboration, feedback, things like that. And so I learned that entirely in the military, specifically my time at DevGuru, and that was very formative to me as a person and now as a business leader. And so a lot of the stuff that I've picked up, particularly in my last business, raising money and negotiating contracts and partnerships and stuff like that, I threw myself at a lot of those problems. Thankfully, the world's information is available to us through Google or our smartphones. So just because you don't have an MBA doesn't mean you can't go learn that stuff. So a lot of those kind of the specific skills, when you ask about management and technology and things like that, a lot of that have been me, a result of me learning, just kind of immersing myself in books, blogs, podcasts, and surrounding myself with really smarter people who can answer my stupid questions over time. So I get a feel for, what product, leadership looks like, and, what the engineering teams need to do and stuff like that. So it's kind of been it's been a mishmash, nothing by design. I've always wanted to do something that interests me and that challenges me. And I've never had, until I didn't kind of script out the 20 years. It was just, okay, I'll do it until it's fun. And once it stops being fun, then I'm gonna move on to the next thing. And fun is characterized by challenge and learning and stuff like that. And then frankly, startups, boy, I say the closest environment you could find to kind of being deployed with a special operations unit is a startup, because you got a small team, doing really hard things, attacking audacious goals, massive purpose, right? And you have this kind of us against the world type of thing. And I describe it, it's intoxicating. So it's intoxicating in the military sense when you're out there, sort of, you and the small team alone and unafraid, but it's also intoxicating where it's like, in the business world, hey, we're trying to build and create something massive, and there's plenty of headwinds, and there's always problems to solve. And for me, that's it's the most fulfilling thing that I can do right now with my life or in my career.
Yeah. So I guess I'd love to know, with the company that you're with now, Chassi, let's talk about that a little bit. And what is Chassi first, so everyone's able to understand what Chassi is, and then what problems are what is the solve?
Great. I will kind of collapse both of those into a relatively succinct pitch. So we serve small and medium manufacturers and distributors today, wholesale distributors. You can think of Chassi, a metaphor I like to think of, as we're almost like a Fitbit for the key operational processes of a manufacturer distributor. So those businesses exist to take in and fulfill orders to customers, whether it's, hard goods, whatever that looks like. They run their key processes, things that are called quote to cash. Like they give a quote to a customer, they send it out, and then they get the cash, right? That's an end-to-end process for one of those business. They run those on what are called ERP systems. So ERP, which stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, is a 40-plus-year-old category of software. Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, all those big companies out in the world, they have ERP systems, right? What they do is they track all the financial outcomes for businesses like that. What was my cost of goods last month? How many units did I sell? Stuff like that, right? It's important financial software. What it doesn't do is it doesn't give leaders, particularly operational leaders, visibility into what's going wrong right now. Like, where are my bottlenecks? Where is the person in QA who came in 2 hours late, moving slowly, not going to get orders out the door, right? So what they do, they run their businesses kind of blind and by feel, and they wait until a customer calls them angry and says something wasn't in the box or it's late or whatever. And then they go into firefighter mode and investigate what happened, what went wrong. And they do that over and over and over again because the ERP wasn't designed to tell them what's going wrong. So with that preamble, what Chassi does, think of that Fitbit analogy, is we connect into that system. We gather all of the activity of everybody in that system, every click, every button, all the stuff that they're doing. We pull it out, we model it, and then we provide an app back to a business leader who can see within a couple seconds what's my team working on? What are they doing? All the way down to individually, hey, are we on track? Are they performing what they, where they should be? Are they entering in the number of orders in the systems or not? So we give kind of streaming high fidelity visibility, if you will, to the key operations and the performance of a team or teams for business leaders of those types of businesses. So we're basically empowering the accuracy and velocity of their decision making. They can make smarter, faster decisions because they know what's going on, and then they can get in front of incidents before they manifest and wait till the angry customer calls them.
I mean, that is a very robust concept. How did that come about? How did Chassi begin? How did that idea pop into the brains of the founders?
It was a lot of experimentation. So we were founded by a gentleman named Brad Jananga. So Brad was a co-founder of WebPT, obviously very successful business and a successful entrepreneur. I joined Brad several years ago. Brad's original vision was not what I just described to you, but what was baked in Brad's original vision, where we kind of pivoted and iterated into what I just described, was the idea to be able to see what's going on inside an application, right? Mm-hmm. So Brad's experience in WebPT was like many entrepreneurs, you kind of hack together a 1.0 and build it, and before you know it, you're just kind of Frankensteining stuff together. And on the front end for the customer, it might be great, but on the back end, there's kind of like, that closet of jumbled wires, so to speak. So, a lot of the frustration that he felt was we don't know exactly what's going on at any moment. And that concept was really baked into what Chassi is today. We pivoted into the market where initially we were taking something that was going to be sold to startups, right? To show a startup what's happening with customer onboarding or whatever. For a number of reasons, it wasn't the right fit. And we realized we needed to go to bigger businesses with established processes, very high volume of workflow. And that just led us to the market I described. And really, it's just a process of learning and iterating. You need to be able to take feedback. You need to find out what works, what doesn't, and particularly on the what doesn't, why does it not work? What isn't fitting? And you kind of have really two options. Some entrepreneurs or businesses just try to force a square peg in the round hole, and others say, okay, let's be flexible and let's move. And you gotta, in a way, you gotta have both. You have to be sometimes stubborn and push on when things are hard, and in other times, like, hey, that door's not going to open no matter how hard you push. And you got to know when to, like, let's go in through the window, right? Let's go the other way around. So we pivoted again in this market based on all the signals and feedback we had. But a lot of it was baked out of that original vision.
I mean, that brings up such a interesting concept that took me a while to grasp, is that companies may seem successful and like they've got everything figured out. And then when you go behind the scenes, you really see all of that duct tape. Yeah. And I'm like, you're a multi-million-dollar company and you've been in business for 10 years.
And like, how could you? Yeah. So my first, when I was in college, I believe one summer I worked at a Ritz-Carlton, and I was like a waiter and attendant. And I had that very thought when I'm like, people are paying so much money to stay here. It's incredible. Like, the experience for the guests is amazing. And then you look kind of behind the scenes where it's like hair on fire, or like, getting the food out, or get whatever it is. It's like, oh my God, if they knew how much we were like barely holding it together. Yeah, that happens. And, we don't, particularly in early stage business, we're very proud of our capabilities and what we can do, but we don't pretend to have all the answers. If anything, the moment you pretend to have all the answers, then you stop learning, and then you're done, right? Like, so, you should never put yourself in a position where you think you have it all figured out, because there's dynamism everywhere. Customer needs, competitors pop up, COVID happened, whatever it is. Things will always change. And I think the most critical thing any startup can become is a learning organization, is build the culture that prides itself on learning, and not only supports, but endorses an answer that I was told in the military, which is one of the best things you can say, is, I don't know, but I'll find out. Right? Like, don't pretend like you have the answer, and don't pretend like you have to pitch a perfect game, so to speak. Put yourself in a place to say, if a customer asks something, if as a leader, a team member asks something, whatever it is, if you don't know, great. That's an opportunity to learn, and then take that and bring that back. So one of the things I'm I'm rambling, but I'll kind of bring it back. One of the things that we do here at Chassi that I would recommend every not just every startup, every business or team do is when we have like an ops meeting for all the team every Monday, we have to finish off every meeting with somebody. We have to go around the table and everybody needs to talk about something they've learned that past week or something they're actively learning. And then you share that with the team, whether it's something from product or marketing or pricing or whatever it is. There's infinite amount of knowledge out there waiting to be taken in and then built into kind of your plans and how you're doing business. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the willingness to learn and being receptive to getting feedback is one of the most essential skills that people can learn. And I had a mentor maybe 2 or 3 years ago that was coaching me on public speaking. And he said, the moment you think you have it figured out, you're wrong.
Totally.
And,
totally.
The fact that you're integrating that culture within your company of ongoing growth and knowledge, I think is going to be a real reason why you guys are successful in the long haul.
Hopefully, I mean, it's table stakes. If we don't, we're not going to get there. There's another expression that comes to mind based on what you just said. It's, stupid people think they know everything. Intelligent people question everything they think they know. Right. Yes. So you're always asking questions. Yeah. Have that intellectual curiosity. Yep.
So one of the things that you had mentioned is, things happen, and with COVID and how the market's been going now, how has that caused you guys to rethink your business, if at all? And what changes are you seeing in others?
So I'll start with the first part of that question is, we have a relatively small team, 8 full-time. We got 7 that are other kind of part-time. What happened is, we went into, as we were pivoting into this market in the beginning of this year, COVID hit, and then we went all remote like everybody. And the thing that I am thankful for is we built really good, patterns of communication and behavior with remote, like out of the gate. We knew we had to do that. So internally we adapted because we were small and agile and we didn't have a ton of cumbersome, infrastructure or processes that we needed to reinvent, so to speak. We were able to adapt to that pretty well, and pretty efficiently. On the customer side, we were very fortunate that what we were doing, both at the start of the pandemic, although we've seen kind of ebbs and flows, but even now is something that I would say offers some tailwinds for us. So businesses that are looking to understand work and understand how that translates to capital efficiency or lack thereof, and want to know, hey, what's going on? How do I improve? How do I streamline processes? How do I get more with less? As well as the accelerant of the air quote digital transformation, right? Businesses who are needing to adapt technologies to empower and enable the performance of their people and their teams. Those are all, there's that sort of confluence of things has actually created wonderful opportunity for us, where, our early call to beta customers in the cohort we've been looking with, even though they saw, orders come down, right? They looked at that as an opportunity to take a look at Chassi and do some spring cleaning, so to speak, which is like make sure they've got processes tight and like, let's get ready for coming out of the other side of this. So once orders go back down or whatever, normal looks like on the other side, we're in a better place to do that. So I'd say the businesses that fall in the camp of I guess being in a fortunate place, whether you're medical devices or something like that, where there's a surge in need, they've also, there's demand there for us as well because capacity and breakdown. So imagine a company not knowing how many orders are we going to get in before we can't fill them, right? Mm-hmm. Having a product like ours will help sophisticated leaders really understand what their capacity looks like. And so a business that's surging is also, going to want to be able to understand kind of critical points of failure internally as well. So all in all, though we're very early stage, I would say the sort of the macro movements in the market for what's happened with COVID has, I guess, benefited us in our ability to respond and plays well for our prospects in the future.
So have you guys, as you've been kind of growing your clientele base, have you noticed any specific industries that are gravitating towards your products or maybe looking to make efficiencies in their products? What trends are you seeing?
So for us, it's, manufacturing, wholesale distribution it's massive, right? Like even in the SMB. So what we're seeing is actually, let me contextualize this maybe a little bit more. So today we target businesses that by revenue top line are maybe 20-ish million top line figure on the low end up to call it low 9 figures, right, on the high end. And for us, we need to connect into their ERP system. So that kind of subsegments down the market. Like we just can't service any manufacturer distributor. Some might be too huge. Some might not even be on the system we connect to. So we're connected to a system inside of SAP called Business One, which is an ERP ecosystem that services over 70,000 customers around the world. And so that's kind of the addressable market we're seeing right now. Within that ecosystem, we are definitely noticing an acceleration toward, again, I air quote, but digital transformation. The reason I'm air quoting it is it's kind of a catch-all term that, yes, 10 different people, what digital transformation means 10 different things. I would euphemize it as trying to leverage technology and acquire technology to enable operations and enable people to do their jobs better, whether that's, chat, video, to enabling technology in the warehouse, helping you close out your financials better, whatever that is. We are definitely seeing businesses in markets that historically have not been thought of as, the earliest adopters of technology in manufacturing distribution are now actively looking for enabling technologies because they realize, obviously more than ever, people are everything, but two, we need to enable and empower our people in order to succeed and give them the tools they need, particularly with the headwinds of remote work. Like I don't have all my teams in the distribution center and I can't pull everyone together. A lot of people working remote. How do we give them what they need in order to be able to do their jobs, et cetera? So that's that prevailing trend that you hear about everywhere, trying to look for new technologies that are enabling is that. And then also trying to better use data and information. We don't position ourselves as a data company. We position ourselves more as an insight company. So we don't furnish raw data. We take it, we process it, and we furnish finished, actionable insights or intelligence in context so people can understand what it means so they don't have to hire teams of consultants and analysts to sift through what Chassi is doing. Our product does that work. And that is also resonating as well because then it's one less step or multiple steps that business leaders don't have to do when they're like, hey, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to business leaders to say, I don't need another data solution. It just creates more noise and friction for me. Just tell me what's going on and I'll do what I got to do.
That's almost you have all the answers, but it's in a language you don't understand.
Yeah. And good luck. Hey, there's there's needles in those haystacks. Good luck jumping through them and trying to find them. Like
you'll be fine. Just,
that's our responsibility with our product is to find those needles for the business leaders, so to speak. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Chassi, based in Arizona, founded in Arizona, operating in Arizona, how has that impacted your business? Have you found that, because Arizona is a growing tech hub, but have you noticed any advantages or disadvantages being based in Arizona?
The reason I'm pausing to collect myself is there's so many different ways I can go with this question. I would say we love being in Arizona. We have an awesome team that is based in Arizona. We will be based in Arizona for now into perpetuity, if you will, but we also won't let the geography restrict us in terms of talent and growing our team. And so if we've got this small team communicating with each other the way you and I are now, right? We're 25-minute drive from each other. We're doing it through a screen. We're effectively remote, right? Mm-hmm. And being able to build the patterns of communication we have been with an all Arizona team, we're hopeful that as we grow and find talent, we'll be able to do it outside of Arizona if the right people come across and the right talent is there. But in the 4 years I've been here, the nascency of this tech ecosystem, it's definitely moving in the right direction. There's there are deals being done here. There's smart people that are moving here en masse. Businesses are doing a lot of great things. And there's a rising tide lifts all ships effect that is I'm hopeful for will continue to manifest. And that's that starts with wins. Businesses need to deliver and need to kind of create wins for customers. and then also for investors, and then other investors take notice and they look, where's their opportunity for deal flow, and then they start to look here, and then founders will have additional capital opportunities as they execute, and these things take time. But again, in the 4 years that I've been here, I've definitely seen an upward trend, and I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the part that Chassi can play in helping the ecosystem continue to level up.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, we can only hope that the more startups that we churn, the more talent that's going to be involved in our community, and the more we'll grow. And with the growth path that you're seeing in your company, you've got to be thinking about culture. I mean, that's such a big thing, and with tech right now, and the fact that you encourage your employees to learn and grow. How are you guys developing your culture?
So this is something I feel very passionately about. Culture is an offshoot of your behaviors. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but a lot of companies talk about their values, and they post them on the website and stuff like that. And it's like, that's great, but that's an output. And what you really value is what comes from the behaviors you promote and support, and the good behaviors you promote and support, and the bad behaviors you condone. Mm-hmm. And so that then let's get all the way down into what does that mean? It's like, how do you communicate with each other as a team, right? How do you provide and receive feedback? How do you lay bare your failures and take ownership of them and learn from them and do that, right? And those types of things, every time there's an opportunity for communication, feedback, learning from a customer, what went right, what went wrong, learning for, hey, we tried X in a marketing messaging thing, or we tried this campaign, or we tried that, whatever it is, we try to bring that internally, strip it down and say, okay, what happened? And promote and encourage accountability, not from a place of like, hey, if something went wrong, hey, who did that wrong? It's, hey, what did you learn? What could the team benefit from that learning? And when you do that, not only, like we talked about, do you help create that learning organization, but you foster trust, right? When there's that open communication, and then there's that transparency, and I look at it as it starts with me, right? So the first step of any leader should be introspection, is like, where did I go wrong? Where did I communicate something wrong? What is my responsibility? That's perhaps my most important role in setting the tone for this team, is exhibiting the behaviors that I expect and would encourage from them, and them to hold me account the same way I would hold that team account. And when you do that, you create, the culture comes from that. Yeah. And what happens is, when you try to find new people to join, I look for the who more than I look for the what, how, and why, right? Like, to a degree, I'm not going to hire a marketer to go write JavaScript, right? You have to have some skills, and you have to have domain knowledge. But like, the most important thing for me is and it's not just a reflection of where we are as a startup, but forever, as long as I'm here running this business, is how do people think? What is their mindset? How do they approach challenge, right? Do you see what could go right, or do you see what could go wrong? And then within that, what do you do with that information? How do you process that? And how do you communicate? And when things are stressful, and, where do you see is your responsibility to take ownership of things and all that? So when you find the right people that have the right mindset, they, like, the host kind of absorbs the new organ, if you will. Yeah. and then I, as a CEO, don't need to be in every conversation in every room, right? Because then we've got everyone as a vanguard of this culture, and making sure that if somebody communicates with somebody in an unprofessional manner, or says something, whatever that is, or does something that is out of line and not congruent with who we are and how we behave, that's self-policed, right? Mm-hmm. And that won't abide. And that to me that's sort of the operating system on which any business runs. And it's the most critical thing. And it's harder and harder to do as you scale. You got to find the right-minded people who, I say right-minded, but very diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, but right-minded in terms of all those other things I was describing, from accountability and learning from failure and all that stuff. And then you have to try to put the right types of kind of framework in place that, enables and empowers ideation and collaboration and communication and experimentation and being okay to fail and all that stuff. I'd say, arguably that's certainly one of the most important things that I will do.
I think you've hit the nail on the head completely with culture. I mean, so often I see people writing down, words on a wall that's like inspire, grow, outpace. And you see all of those things. And it's unless there's actual results and unless you actually see those being done by the people around you, there's no meaning. There's no way.
It's talk. Talk is cheap. Anyone can say that. Anyone can say that at all. Right. So like it's the old, a vision is just a hallucination without execution. It's the same thing, right? Like that idea of, hey, here are our values. That's wonderful. You need to walk that walk every day. And then it will actually become real. And if you don't, I don't care what you print out or put on your website. It doesn't matter. Like Enron, right? If you're familiar with that, disaster where executives ended up in jail and all of that, like 20 some years ago, their corporate values are like trust and accountability and transparency. And it was like the greatest irony. So like, it doesn't mean anything unless you have the right behaviors, right? Mm-hmm. And then that gets back to, again, the people on your team, right? And we're a small business. So really everyone here, I look at everyone has the opportunity to lead regardless of title or any of that stuff. There's a sort of a concept in the military called supporting and supported. Mm-hmm. And that has really little to do with kind of rank and title and more, okay, what's the objective? Who person or entity or unit is being supported because they're in the lead, and then everybody else needs to be supporting them. And on the next operation, that might flip. And so we might, our director of content marketing, Evie, might need things for whether it's campaign, pitch deck, whatever. And I turn into, okay, hey, what do you need? And I'm supporting her. It has nothing to do with title. That has to do with like what needs to get done and how do we align a team around getting that done. And that happens all the time. That inverts all the time on this team where people get the opportunity to lead and follow, and you got to be able to do both. So and that's, again, to loop this all back, that's why I love startups, right? It's just so much harder to do that at a larger business with kind of sclerotic, two-dimensional, hierarchy, and people are, focused on the wrong things like their own interests and their title rather than what's the best for the team.
Yeah, I'm a relatively new manager myself, and some of the thoughts and things that you've said, I'm like, yes, I've kind of started to form a concept like that, but I didn't know the words. And, I feel like the higher I've gotten in my career, the broader and more of a supporting person I've
been. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah.
That's a great support. Like, I'm about to write that down.
Yeah, it's a reflection of that you got there naturally, is a reflection of you and your character as a leader. And instead of thinking it's all about me and I got to go run, and it's like, okay, the bigger the team, the more complexity you have, the more you need to step back and put yourself in a place to say, how do I facilitate? Right? Where do I need to provide top cover or resources or enable, or what do that's that kind of term of servant leadership. We have people who own, all the domains from engineering to product to marketing to customer experience, to finance, you name it. They've forgotten more about their craft than I'll ever know. Right. So like, I'm not like foolish for me to think that I'm going to, I'll have ideas and we'll collaborate and we'll do all that stuff. But like, okay, great. You got ownership of this. What can I do? What can the team do? What do you need? So that you got there naturally is a wonderful thing. And that's it. So.
Yeah. I mean, literally last week in the lower level kitchen, there was a pipe that burst and there was water everywhere, and I was mopping. That manager came in. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "You don't have time for this. Go away."
But so like, that's a perfect anecdote, right? Of accountability. Right. You're not too proud to like, oh, I shouldn't be mopping, somebody else should. It's like, no, that's the first thing you should do is like, okay, I'll take out the trash. I'll do whatever needs to be done around here. Because again, you're being protective of your team member who's got stuff to do, and you're going to go handle that problem, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it cracks me up.
Yeah.
The members, when they see me hauling a mop bucket, they're just cracking up. I mean, it's
That's
happened.
great.
I have mopped our facility more times as I've gotten promoted. I feel like
I have a tremendous amount of respect for that and for you for doing that. That's ownership, right? That means you care. And again, your team sees that and they know that you're going to do whatever needs to be done and you have their backs, which is wonderful.
I'm just going to play that as I'm walking. Listen to what Andrew said. This is the explanation for that. And, that just, it seems like